Hello again there folks, Lone Adventurer here. Thank you very much for stumbling your way upon my channel and joining me for another sort of overview video of a particular subgenre of this subgenre that we enjoy, solo gaming. This particular video is going to be all about solo adventure puzzly games. So games that might scratch the sort of itch that you scratch by completing a sudoku or I hesitate to say crossword because none of these games particularly resemble a crossword, but if you find yourself enjoying puzzly type games and you like adventure games where you take a hero into an area or a group of heroes into a dungeon or something like that. If you like those sort of games and puzzling games, this is going to be the video for you. So I'm going to run through a bunch of these games. I have tried to arrange them artfully here to fill in the screen so there's something to look at while I'm waffling on at the start of this, but in a second I'm going to take all of this away and we'll go through them one by one. All of these games are available online. Some of them are free. All of them are at least very affordable. Some of them are small, some of them are much larger in scale. The majority of them I've played on my channel. I will be including links up in the corner of the screen to playthroughs of these games and links down in the description below to wherever you can get yourself a copy and probably to my playthroughs as well. So let's move these to one side, bring in the first one and run through these games. So first up we have Void Halls, which is the game that I have played most recently from this selection of games, so it's the freshest one in my mind, so I thought I'd cut myself some slack and start off with this game. They're not in any particular order, they're not in order of preference or order of price, they are just in the order that I find myself grabbing them. So the first one is Void Halls, and this is from Paramyth Games. There'll be a link up in the corner of the screen to my playthrough of it right about now, and as I said before, there'll be a link to wherever you can get the game if you are so inclined in the description down below. So this is the Necromancer's Den sheet of Void Halls. Says here, as the master of the dungeon, you lure heroes to explore this den. The victims leave behind them what they carried. Now all valuables brought from far away belong to you. Organize your dungeon and set treasures to lure heroes, traps, and warriors to encounter them. The riches will come to you, and fame will rise in the dark hall of legends. So this is a scoring game. You are trying to score the highest score that you can, and I guess really comparing your score against other people who have played the game or just against your previous highest score. So I've played this a couple of times. This was my first playthrough. I scored 42 points, and this is my second playthrough where I scored 60 points, unless I got something wrong, but I don't think I did. In this game you are rolling a whole bunch of dice. Each of your dice represents workers, and you're trying to essentially, most of the time, get matching dice in order to do certain activities. You're trying to build things in your dungeon. One of the things you build is mines. You can use mines to collect supplies. Once you've got enough supplies, you can build the other things that you need. Warriors, chests, a mystical force, which has a particular ability, traps, tombs, which is another way of generating workers, and scepters, which is something that just scores you points. You draw your dungeon map down here. It's split into different levels, and the more levels down you go, the more points you are able to score. It's played over a particular number of rounds, which you track up here. Every now and then you have a hero round in which heroes come into your dungeon lured by chests that you have built, and if you have warriors and traps, you are able to defeat them and score points based upon how many have come in. And at the end of the game, you also score points based upon supplies that you have left over, how many halls you have managed to excavate, I guess, and upgrades that you have made to your buildings, because you can also upgrade buildings. So each round you roll your dice and you have a look at what you've got. I mean, what we've got here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's pretty sweet, because that would allow us to upgrade a building. But if we didn't want to upgrade a building, we might keep those 2 4s. You can then do 2 re-rolls. Got another 4 there, a couple of 6s, and another 6. So a set of 3 matching dice would allow you to build. So here we could build 2 new buildings if we had the supplies, or we could assign 2 matching dice to a mine in order to gain more supplies. And that's basically the long and short of it, really. You're trying to build the most effective dungeon to lure in and kill heroes in order to score points. That is Void Halls. That's our first game. There are other versions of it as well. When you purchase this game, you get, I think, 3 or 4 different sheets, so you have different dungeon layouts that you are working with. Yeah, that's our first game, Void Halls from Paramyth Games. Next up, we have Lantern, which is a game, a solo roll and write adventure, and it says here, designed by D. Maggio, or D. Maggio, with artwork by P. Browd. This is, I believe, available for free on DriveThruRPG. It's one of the first solo roll and write type games that I discovered quite a few years ago now. So it's been a long time since I've played it, but it comes with this very pleasing map sheet, which a lot of people who like this game choose to colour in and make pretty and then laminate, so you've got a sheet that you can use multiple times. And a very tight, succinct set of rules, which is very easy to get into. Very pleasing iconography. What's happening at Last Fortress? For months the kingdom has not received news from the lookouts. The last messages spoke of strange sightings from the east, but for decades no one has been living in those territories anymore. Flames rise in the sky and illuminate the destroyed fortress. Begin your journey through the forest. So when you start, you have to roll 6 dice in order to set these abilities. You have a critical hit ability, a counter attack ability, a magic spell, constitution, and experience. I don't think you assign anything to that initially at the start. And then once you've done that, you move through these different areas. In each area you have to roll your dice, and then you have to fulfill the requirements for entering that area. So for example, in area 1 you have to have a 4 and a 5, and then 3 additional matching dice. So we're going to have to re-roll these ones. I think this is the same in terms of rolling as the last game, these sort of like Yahtzee inspired games. That's not true, sorry, that was wrong. What you have to do is stick with the dice that you've got. So I think I had a 1, 2 and a 3. And then you use your various abilities to adjust those dice to get what you need. So for example, your counter attack ability can add or subtract 1. So I could use my counter attack to increase that to a 4. And then you would reduce your counter attack ability. You can only use it a certain number of times. Then your critical hit ability allows you to flip to the opposite face. So I could flip the 2 to a 5. So I've got 3 matching 5s. And then I would have to use another ability to change that. You can use your constitution to reroll any number of dice. Your magic ability to reroll a dice. Single dice, that is. So you use your abilities, you do that, and if you are successful, then fantastic, you have got into that zone, you have defeated the enemies in that zone, and you're able to move on to the next one. So you gradually move through all of the areas until you get to the final one, where in order to defeat the dragon, you have to get 6 matching numbers. So it might sound easy, but I remember the game being actually quite challenging. It's a fun little game. I recommend it, and I'm almost certain that it's free. Sorry if I'm wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. So there you go. That is Lantern. Next up, we have got a game called Dungeon Pages. Now, do I have the designer of this game included in this rules document? You'd hope that I do. Okay, so it does simply say that the publisher is P&P Arcade. It's the print and play arcade game, essentially. They kickstarted it and they distribute it through Print and Play Arcade, so that's where you can get it now. And it's designed by Jason Greeno and Jason Tagmeyer, who is a very prolific game designer. And Dungeon Pages is probably the most puzzly game that we have got in this video. And this is a game that you can really sink your teeth into. If it's a system that you find yourself enjoying, there is a huge amount of material for this game. You can buy it relatively cheaply considering how much you get. There are dozens and dozens of characters, dozens and dozens of different locations. I think there's like a campaign mode now that's absolutely massive. It's a game that's still being actively developed, I think. They're making a new version of it, or a new game using the similar system, but a bit more ambitious. And this is the game that is most like Sudoku, really, on this list. It's a moderately complicated game, but once you get into it, it is smooth playing and lots of fun. You have your character, and you choose a location. So this character and location happens to be on just one sheet, but you can cut there and you can take Gloria into any location you wish. So you've got Hellenberg here. This one's the Cliff Drop City. And this one here, we've got Thorn Valley. All of the different locations come with different monsters, different traps, different mechanics that are introduced, so they are all different. And what you have to do is you have to take your character through different areas in a particular location. So for example, for Cliff Drop City here, you have to go into the Abandoned Tavern, the Alchemy School, the Forest Hut, the Haunted Cottage, and Everdark Castle, which is the final area in which you have to face a boss. And if you complete the boss dungeon, that's the large one in the bottom right here, by defeating all the boss monsters and reaching the treasure, you win the game. You add any experience gained from defeated monsters and completed columns to determine your final score. And what that means about columns is, as you are playing, you roll some dice. I don't quite recall how many you roll, but I know some are good and some are bad dice. The dice get assigned to the spots in the area that you are currently going into, because you have to select one of these locations, one of these sub-locations into which you go, and you have to create a line from the entrance to the treasure. So this outlined series of numbers I've got here is the line that I created from the entrance to the treasure, so I was able to complete that location. You can pick up items, like here we've got a key, some coins, a health potion, I think, by placing 2 matching numbers next to that item. So here, for example, I picked up that key by putting a 3 there and a 3 there, and I picked up that health potion by putting a 6 there and a 6 there. And we've got some enemies. Here we've got some frozen guardians. And you can see we've got different enemies here. This location here has orcs, frozen guardians, hunting spiders, and then the trap is a spike pit. And over here, for this location, we've got bats, wandering monsters. Oh, we always have wandering monsters. Frozen guardians, which is the same, but also grim vampires. So you've got a different boss in the final location, and that's the grim vampires. So there's quite a lot of variety. It's quite an involved game. It is a lot of fun. You can see up here, you track your character's health, you track their XP, you can give them certain upgrades when you hit certain amounts of XP, you can add additional dice, you can gain some health, you can get a reroll, I guess that is, you can get new weapons that allow you to maneuver around the dungeon in different ways, and you can get relics, which are special items that give you powers. So for example, Sigrid has access to the steam-powered boots, which allows you to mark a 1 adjacent to another marked space. So here, for example, if I wanted to put a 1 here and I had a 1 there, I could put a 1 there for free using my steam-powered boots. Because not only are you trying to put certain numbers in certain locations to defeat enemies and to collect items, the route that you draw has to be of consecutive numbers, either going up or down. So this one here has gone 1 1 2 3 3 2 3 3 2 3 3, and because I haven't done any gaps, if I went from a 2 to a 4, then I would have failed this location, but I managed to get that route. And on this sheet you can see I managed to achieve that in every single location. So there you go, that is Dungeon Pages. If you purchase that game, you get so much material. It is pretty impressive how much material they have produced for this game. There's all sorts of abilities, locations, characters. It's a big one. So if you're looking for something to really get your teeth into, this might be the game for you. Dungeon Pages. If you like the look of Dungeon Pages and you are more of a sci-fi fan, Dangerous Space is essentially Dungeon Pages, but in space. So it's from the same designers, Jason Tagmeyer, Jason Greeno, and it's another one that's quite sophisticated, as you can see from this icon reference sheet here, which has an awful lot of icons on it, but they're very easy to understand and very well documented there. And so you can see we've got a similar sort of setup. You have a character, health tracker, you have more of a sort of a, what should you call it, like a skill tree, like in a video game, sort of way of developing your character, improving their ability to move, shoot and defend. You also have skills you can upgrade them with as you go. And then there's also a time mechanic. Time is limited in this game. And the location that you're going into is, rather than separate individual areas, it is all linked. So you have to choose where you're going to go into a location. This one is called the ESS Oathbound. The ship has been drifting for months. Why has no one staked it? You have to choose where you're going to go into the ESS Oathbound in this instance. We have 3 possible entrance doors, or airlocks, I guess they are. And you make your way round the different locations, and you have a mission. So for example, for this particular location, our mission is to eliminate the boss, an adapting brawler. You must defeat the boss threat before exiting. You've got a couple of smaller threats, enemies that you are facing. In this game you've got the concept of line of sight, because you have ranged weapons, so you might not be able to see, or maybe you can, that going up and across, up and down and across from each enemy, we have their line of sight where they are able to see, and you have to consider that when you are moving around. Let's see if we've got a sheet here I completed. Yes, I do. This is the character of Donzi and the location of ESS Oathbound. So this is the same location, but with a different mission. So you've got a bit of variety that way. And you can see that the aim here is to get from the entrance that you've come in to checkpoints. So we've got a checkpoint here, and I managed to get there by going 2 1 1 1, got to the checkpoint, which also gives you an extra dice, I think. And then you've got to go into new areas, and when you go into the new areas, the enemies in those areas activate and start to become a threat to you, and you have to do certain things. Like, for example, there are key cards that allow you to open doors. Again, we've got various items that we can collect. This is some kind of health stim pack and other cool stuff. So this is another one that sort of plays a bit like sudoku, in that you're filling in numbers in boxes and having to consider carefully where those numbers go. So it's got a very puzzly vibe, but you're exploring a location, you've got a character, you're improving your character, you're facing threats, completing missions. So in that sense, it's very much like the sort of games we tend to play here on the Lone Adventurer channel. That is Dangerous Space, and just like Dungeon Pages, there is a massive amount for this game. So if you purchase it, you get dozens and dozens of locations and characters and all sorts of stuff. So this game and the previous game, they really are the sort of game that you could buy and play for months and really zone in on it and enjoy it. And there are people on Board Game Geek and other places online, no doubt, who are very deep into these games and really, really love them. They have a passionate following and they're worth checking out. So that is Dangerous Space. So that's 4 games done, and I think 2 more to go. Well done if you're sticking with me. This is Pencils and Powers. I think I've got the rules here. Yes, I do. Now, this is a game that I discovered very early on, and I played on the channel very early on. I keep meaning to bring it back to the channel because there are numerous sheets for this game. Have I got one that's completed? No, I don't. I must have recycled the ones that I did. Now, this is another dice chucking game. I think all of these are really. And you are taking a group of characters in this one. They are down here. We've got 4 heroes. We've got a mystic, a guardian, a sorcerer, an assassin on this particular sheet, because this is another game that comes with quite a bit of variety. But this game you can get for free, I believe, on Board Game Geek. I should have said it's from Mark Gindra. And yeah, it's another one that comes with loads of sheets. So we've got the Dread Knight sheet here, we've got the Crazed Alchemist sheet, and we've got Alien Overrun. So we've got a sci-fi sheet here. This is the one I want to bring to the channel soon, really. I say soon, I've been meaning to bring it to the channel for like a year or 2 now. I do like the hexagonal sort of map on this one. And that's the Crazed Alchemist again. But there's more. There's, I think, a dozen or so different sheets. They all have different heroes, different locations, different enemies. But they all play in largely the same way. But they do all introduce new mechanics. Each one comes with a little rules supplement that I seem to have misplaced for these sheets, or they're down there off to the side. So they do keep things interesting by adding new little mechanics and nuances, but you've also got your heroes. They have different abilities. You have different enemies. They have different abilities. Usually you have a boss, I believe. The bosses are always different. The locations are always laid out in a different way. So you're rolling some dice, and you are using those dice to complete certain tasks. Let me get the sheet in front of me to remind myself. First of all, you can explore. So you've got this is a game that introduces a sort of a Tetris, I think they call them polyominoes, hoping I've got that right, style mechanic. You can see here that each of the dice, or the dice from 2 to 6, the dice values from 2 to 6, each have a traditional Tetris shape associated with them. So if you assign the 3 to movement, then you would draw 3 in a line like this. But you start here, down in this question mark, I think. So really, ideally, I would have wanted a 4 to start with, because then you can do that sort of Tetris shape. Yeah, that's right, isn't it? Because I could have gone there, and that would have got me over to here. Because you have to use those shapes to draw your route around this location. Each of these rooms will have an enemy assigned to them, which you decide the numbering at the start, randomly more or less, and treasure assigned to them. And there are different treasures that you can acquire. So you draw a route. Once you get to a door, you are able to go in and attempt to defeat those monsters, gain the treasures in order to improve your chances as you move closer and closer to facing the final boss. The other dice that you roll, how many dice do you roll? I think it's less. Oh, it's 3 dice. You only roll 3 dice. And the other ones you have to assign to the monsters and to the treasure. So the treasure gradually gets more and more valuable as you assign dice values to it. And the monsters gradually get more and more dangerous as you assign dice to them. So you're trying to sort of hopefully reduce the rate at which your monsters are increasing in strength, whilst also improving your treasure and moving around the location in the best possible way. Yeah, that's Pencils and Powers. It's got a lot of variety. It's a quick and easy one to play, and it's free. So definitely worth checking out. There's all sorts of cool sheets. I've only got a few of them here. Pencils and Powers is our penultimate game on this list. Finally, we've got Doom Realm, which is from Grey Gnome Games, designed by Jason Glover, and it says down here, inspired by Pencils and Powers by Mark Jindra, because this is essentially Pencils and Powers, but refined a little bit and just improved if you like your games to be a bit more pretty, because Jason has applied his particular style and artistic flair to making this game a bit more presentable. So this is another one I've played on the channel. In fact, I kept my sheet for this one. You can see we've got a little tracker down the side where you keep track of the dice that you have rolled. And again, it's very similar in that this one is hexagonal rather than polyonymo shapes. You are drawing these shapes based upon the dice you are rolling. Moving around, you have some random encounters that you might have in certain spots. Pencils and Powers has that as well. And yeah, it's very similar. You've got your enemies, you've got your treasure, you've got your characters down here. On this one, we've got a watchman, an assassin, and an alchemist. And much like in Pencils and Powers, although I didn't mention it when we were talking about that game, your characters can be leveled up in terms of their health and their power, I think it is. And you can give them additional abilities, you can give them shields and swords. I think you find those things as treasure. And you work your way through a certain number of rounds, or until such time as you defeat the enemy, which on this sheet is a Troll King. And then you work out a final score based upon these details here. And you see how you did, and you see if you can beat your best score, or you can see if you can beat your family members or your friends, see who comes out on top. But there you go, Doom Realm. That's the last game we're going to look at. As I said, I have played the majority of these games on the channel. They are all readily available online. You can check out my playthroughs. Have a look at where you can get yourself copies down in the description below. Hope you enjoyed that one, folks. See you in the next video. Bye for now.